Hi, I'm Amelia Hagedon, kindergarten teacher at Lakeville Elementary. I'm excited to share my action research project where I explored how social stories can support young learners in managing their emotions and making positive behavior choices. Imagine, you're 5 years old and the big day is finally here, your first day of kindergarten. Your backpack is packed, your outfit is ready, your pencil box is loaded with supplies. You arrive at your new school, and your teacher smiles. "Hi, friend. I'm so glad you're here." You let go of your grown-up's hand and step inside. You aren't quite sure where to hang your backpack, so you go to ask your new teacher, but a classmate is already talking to her. That's okay, you can wait. You want to build with blocks, but someone's already using them. You try the kitchen center, but it's crowded. At circle time, you want to sit next to the teacher, but there's no space. You feel your excitement about kindergarten beginning to fade. Later, you line up for recess and someone cuts. At snack time, your granola bar is crushed. You go to tell your teacher, but she's helping classmates open their food. For a second, you feel like crying, but you eat your smushed granola bar anyway. Whew, that was almost a disaster. Wait, did that kid just touch your pencil box? There are kids everywhere, sitting, standing, talking, crying, laughing, trying to find their materials, trying to figure out what to do. So many kids and only one teacher to meet their needs. Welcome to kindergarten. Kindergarten is magical, but it's also loud and busy and full of moments where students have to wait, share, listen, and try again. At the heart of this project was my desire to create a safe and nurturing learning environment, one where students not only feel secure, but also see themselves as capable and kind. When students feel emotionally supported, we set the stage for meaningful academic growth. In my classroom, I noticed reoccurring behavioral challenges that were barriers to learning. Things like keeping hands to self, eloping, refusals, disruptive crying, and difficulty accepting no. These behaviors were more intense and widespread than in previous school years, highlighting a clear need for more structured social-emotional support. In the classroom, I had already implemented several common supports such as visuals, modeling, consistent routines, intermittent positive reinforcement, and calm-down strategies. These are beneficial tools I use every school year. While they are all helpful, we needed something more. One strategy that our MTSS team had consistently recommended was the use of social stories. I had heard of their effectiveness, but had never put them into practice. Social stories are an evidence-based treatment for children with autism. They were created by Carol Gray in 1990, who was a Michigan educator and later an educational consultant. Social stories are written from the student's perspective and use reassuring positive language. The idea is to make the story more descriptive than directive. So instead of saying, "you must sit crisscross," it might say, "I can sit crisscross on the carpet when it's time to listen." Pictures are included to make the stories more accessible and engaging. The goal is to increase student ownership of behavior by helping them see themselves as successfully navigating daily routines. When I began hunting for social stories to use in my classroom, I came across the same problem over and over again. These social stories were filled with cheesy clip art that didn't represent our student population. We've heard about windows and mirrors in children's literacy. Windows are books that offer a view into someone else's experience, while mirrors are books that reflect the reader's own identity and experiences. I'm not sure which category this clip art falls into, but it's definitely not a mirror. This is important because the books and content students are exposed to can play a powerful role in identity formation. If students see themselves in books, it fosters a stronger sense of belonging, it increases engagement, and supports better learning outcomes. After hearing about a study conducted by Jessica J. Good at Rutgers University, I knew the issue of the images in these social stories had to be solved. Her study involved students who read nearly identical science textbooks. There was only one major difference: the genders depicted in the illustrations. Her findings revealed that girls who viewed texts with images of exclusively female scientists scored significantly higher on exams compared to those who saw less or no images of females. Her study proved the more students see themselves portrayed positively in books, the higher they achieve in that area. Representation in what we read matters. Another issue I encountered with the pre-made social stories was that they often used a text that was too wordy and heavy for a kindergartner to read on their own. I needed a tool that students could access independently if needed. So I set out to create something different. I used real-life images taken directly from our classroom environment. along with photos of the actual tools and materials I wanted my students to engage with. I reduced the amount of text, simplifying the language to make it more developmentally appropriate and easier for kindergartners to understand. The process was fairly simple once I created our first social story. I would spend 5 to 10 minutes as a part of our daily routine at least 3 times per week. I would switch out the social story every few weeks, and we would begin the process all over again with a brand new story. To introduce a new social story, I would print them out and slide them into something called their dry erase folders. We would start with a picture walk. Students would participate in a see, think, wonder using their images, and then I would read the story aloud. On day 3 and on, we would do a shared reading of our social stories as a part of the morning routine. By week 2, we would incorporate concepts about print and snap word work. After we had thoroughly practiced a social story and it was time to introduce a new skill, we placed a copy of our social story in our calm down corner. This allowed students to revisit and reflect on it whenever they needed support. As a class, we would also take time to brainstorm ideas for our next story, always considering the unique needs and dynamics of our classroom. Finally, students would remove the old social story from the dry erase folders, staple them, and bring them home to share with their families. I received encouraging feedback from parents who shared how much they appreciated seeing the skills that we were focusing on in our classroom, along with photos of their child actively engaged in the learning process. As we moved through this process, I began to notice encouraging changes in the classroom that suggested the strategy was having a positive impact. There were fewer tears, and students started to develop a more positive view of themselves and their peers. Playtime became more enjoyable and cooperative, with fewer conflicts over toys. I was also able to introduce strategies from building thinking classrooms and saw students engaging in academic conversations. They began listening thoughtfully to different perspectives and explaining their own ideas using calm, respectful language. Students shared that they liked seeing pictures of themselves, that it made them feel happier at school. This particular student shared he liked how he could see himself being good, and it reminded him that he could do it again. That sense of self-efficacy, of being able to try, succeed, and try again is what we strive for every day. While these observations were encouraging, I wanted stronger evidence that this specific strategy was contributing to the growth that I was seeing. Each year, I consistently use visuals, pre-teaching, modeling, structured routines, positive reinforcement, and calming strategies. The only new element this year was the use of social stories. I began to wonder, how could I more clearly determine if social stories were making the difference? To measure the impact, I use SABRE's data to track student risk levels across the year. This is a combination score of social, academic, and emotional behaviors. In the previous school year, there was an 8.3% growth in students moving to a lower risk category. This was with no social stories. This school year, I saw much greater growth. 21.7%. I couldn't believe these numbers at first, so I went back to further calculate growth rates for other years. 5% growth was an average. 21% is such a meaningful shift and a strong indication that consistent social stories made a difference. I found social stories to be a lower prep, high impact strategy for supporting positive behavior and social emotional growth. They're effective, personal, and empowering. They can be shared easily with resource room teachers, FSLs, or parents. By teaching students to see themselves as capable problem solvers, we can help students build skills they'll carry far beyond the classroom. If you can see the value in social stories with real-life pictures, I've come up with some small steps you might take. The first is to use a single real-life visual in a behavioral hotspot of your classroom. You might take a photo of the positive desired behavior you wish to see and add labels together as a class. While these examples are very cute, a printed out photo with sticky notes all over it is probably just as effective. Another way to begin exploring social stories is by utilizing tools like ChatGPT, School AI, or Magic School AI. Instead of spending time searching the internet for a story that fits your specific classroom needs or starting from scratch, you can simply input a prompt into your preferred AI platform. Be sure to include details such as the desired length, the grade level, and topic. AI will generate a solid starting point that you can build upon. If you'd like to utilize my template, scan this QR code and it will take you to examples of the social stories I've created. Please feel free to copy and change for your classroom's own unique needs. Thank you so much for listening and for all you do to support our learners every day.